Hello and welcome to the Power Within podcast. I'm your host, Laurie, and today I'm so excited to have Terri Pugh on the podcast. Terri, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm really looking forward to this because we had such a good conversation, a nice chat beforehand, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a nice conversation, I think.
Yeah, I really love your energy. You have like this really beautiful energy and you're fun. And when you had reached out to me on the Riverside Facebook, I was like, I like her. Like I just started listening. Now you have a podcast of your own, the Intuitive Eating and Body Confidence podcast. So can you explain, and you also do coaching as well. You have your own
hmm
business. So can you explain a little bit for people who don't know what intuitive eating is, what that is and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm Terri. I'm a coach. I specialize in intuitive eating and body image for women primarily because I feel like I'm a female. I can resonate with women. I can't really resonate with men, but the message is the same anyway. The intuitive eating system works for everybody. So the easiest way for me to explain intuitive eating is when we're born, we come into the world with no beliefs around food and body shape and size and ideal weight and that sort of thing. We just know when we're hungry, when we're full, and what we want to eat and what we don't want to eat. So, for example, a baby will cry when they're hungry and will stop eating, will refuse the bottle when they're full. And the same with a toddler. So a very young toddler will one day want to eat all of the broccoli and carrots in all of the lands, and then the next day you can get them to go nowhere near them. And that's the intuitive eater in us. It's our natural body systems telling us what we want to eat, how much we want to eat, when we're satisfied. And unfortunately, what happens is as we get a little bit older and we go to school and we start absorbing the world around us, it all gets knocked out of us. So my job as a coach is to help people get back into touch with that intuitive side of eating and overhaul all these messages that become ingrained in us as adults, as teens and adults, where we start wanting to change the way we look, the way we feel around food, um, and all the dieting. I help people reject all of that so that we can just work with our body's natural systems and eat in a really natural way.
Now, I listened to your story on your podcast and you had shared some really interesting information. So I want to go back to that a little bit. And so you had shared about how, like, I think it was like around 6 years old, like children start to get that cognitive ability to understand that, what they look like and like other people's perceptions. I thought that was very, very interesting. And you had shared some of your own stories about how when you were at people's houses, their parents were like, "You're not going out like that," and it kind of made you really conscious at a very, very young age to be aware of what you look like. So I want to talk a little bit about the kid perspective of this and growing up in that kind of perspective of really like understanding your body image at that point and what other people were perceiving. Like I don't know if people really understand that when they say stuff to children at that young age that they really perceive it, but they do. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, we're so impressionable from such a young age. It's quite scary, really. About the age of 4 or 5, we are able to compare ourselves to other people. So up until that age, if you ask a child to point to their nose, point to their eyes, where is your mouth, that kind of thing, they can do it. When you get to the age of about 4 or 5, though, a child can start to compare themselves to other people. So they will know that, say, their nose is bigger or smaller than their mum's nose. So it's not so much at that age a case of, well, I am fatter than you and that's a bad thing, or I am thinner than you and that's a good thing. It's a case of I can compare. At that age, I can compare myself to somebody else in some way. And then over the next couple of years, as the processing abilities, their brain function, all of that develops by the time they get to the age of around 7 or 8 at the moment, the study's showing. At that sort of age, children are starting to actively manipulate what they are eating, what they are drinking, the exercise that they're taking part in, to actively change their bodies and to try and conform to these standards that we're giving them, basically. So they are starting at that age, between the age kind of 4 and 8 window, they're starting to hear messaging about fat bodies being bad, certain foods being good or bad. There's a lot of messaging in schools and things around what's acceptable to go into lunch boxes, for example. You should have lots of fruit. You shouldn't have lots of chocolate, that sort of thing. And all these messages start shaping this very young brain. And then by the age of 7 or 8, they're starting to actively try and make changes in what they're eating and what they're doing so that they can become what they think is right. Which is sad. It's really sad, I think.
It is. And you see, like, especially with magazines and television, and you and I were having this conversation about this, like, culture of, like, people always constantly saying that, oh, this person's fat, or this person's not, or this person's, needs to lose weight. And there are so many diets that are formed, and like, children see this they see it with their friends, they see it with their parents. And then, we had talked about, like, how in high school, like, the fad was, like, eating jars of baby food, and, and it was really terrible. So I think that there's this kind of, I don't know if it's as prevalent in the UK, but I know in the US, it's everyone's on the cover of magazines, and it's constantly, like, body shaming. And so people are constantly being fed, oh, I need to diet, I need to do this, I need to lose weight. And with this is they keep trying to do everything. Like, right now, the big fad is the Ozempic, taking the Ozempic shots to lose weight. And it's not even, it's not even tested. And the people coming off of it are actually gaining more weight once they get off of it. So I want you to speak kind of to, like, how these constant diets, none of them are really going to work, because everything is put out there as a profit, not actually to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was the founder of, or one of the chief execs of Weight Watchers. I think you guys have Weight Watchers there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the big CEOs of Weight Watchers was actually quoted as saying that 94% or something like that of their members leave and walk back through the door later. And that's what their business model is formed around. They want you to enjoy it for a while, have a nice big loss at the beginning, really find the plan relatively easy when it's things like Weight Watchers and Slimming World and plans like that. And then, because our bodies kick back, they're designed to kick back, then as the weight plateaus, as the loss plateaus rather, and the weight comes back on, and you lose faith in yourself, not the diet, you lose faith in yourself and your ability to do it, and you leave and the weight comes back on, what do? You go back. You walk back through the door. So everything that these companies do is all designed around you walking back through those doors and paying your membership and buying their products and subscribing to whatever they tell you is the right way to eat. And this is the same with everything we follow. You said about the media and things, the magazine covers, the lose X amount of weight in X amount of days. You see that plastered all over the cover of magazines when you're getting ready for summer holidays and you're getting ready for Christmas and things like that. And you just blindly follow it because if you're a person who's overweight or feels like you're overweight, you are just trying to find that fix. You're trying to find that one thing that works for you. And so that's what all these things are designed to do. Lure you in, make you buy their products. And it's a shame because nobody ever says, actually, you're good as you are. And actually, if you try this, what you're going to do is damage your health a little bit. You're going to create more problems down the line for yourself. And especially, you mentioned Ozempic. We've got that thing going on here as well. It's massive. And that, quite frankly, is scary. But it started because people realized very quickly that the side effect of taking that medication for an actual condition that somebody's got is very heavily weighted in weight loss. And that's where this trend for Ozempic as a weight loss solution came from. It's actually a treatment for a medical condition, but a big side effect is weight loss. And so now companies are seeing this as a moneymaker because they're like, oh, this is what people want. We can give this to you. We got it. We'll sell it you. And unfortunately, part of the problem with that is, firstly, it's damaging for your health because, as you said, people are putting the weight back on straight away as soon as they come out of using it. That's a massive side effect with all diets, is regaining weight and more. But also, a big problem with things like Ozempic is it's taking supplies away from the people who actually need it.
Yep.
And who actually need it to live and be well. So when it comes to things like Ozempic, there are massive repercussions all over the place for that.
Yeah, I know my friend uses it for her diabetes and she actually could not get it. And so, like we were talking, and she's like, I've got to try to ask my doctor for a different prescription if this keeps happening, because she's like, 1 month I can have it and then the next month there's none. And she would go to multiple pharmacies. And that is a problem because that is a diabetic medication and people are using it the other way because it's a new fad diet. And I think, like, everyone's body is so different too. And so I know for myself, a lot of the things that I've struggled with diets that hasn't worked is that, what will work for one person isn't going to work for everybody. And at the root of it too is, until you love yourself and you work through your own things, it doesn't matter how many diets you do. It doesn't matter if you're not comfortable with yourself as you are, nothing's ever going to make you happy. And I know that you kind of talked about that a bit in your podcast too. So I was wondering if you would share a little bit, like you were talking about in your episode, how you would kind of compare yourself to other girls, especially when you would get up in the morning and go exercise before school. And so you'd be like, oh, well, I'm better than this, but they're better than that. And I think especially with women, there's this, I don't like it, this compete and compare. And I love later where you said, all of my friends now, like, we have none of that and we just love each other and they're great relationships. So I think something that's also wrong with all these diet things too is the compete and compare factor. So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit and share with people that struggle that you had with that in your own life.
I think I have always done that. I grew up in a house where my mum was a prolific dieter. That's all I ever knew. And at the age of 13, I think it was, my first Weight Watchers group attendance was at 13. And I went along and I saw people losing weight, being happy with this weight loss. And that became the thing to strive for. And then, of course, when you do well, when you go to groups, especially when you do well, you get praised for that. So then there was this comparison of, I need to be, this is what I'm aiming for. There's this number, which is this weird arbitrary number that's plucked out of thin air that you're trying to achieve in your goal weight. And then every time you take a step closer to that, somebody says, you're doing so well. And so it becomes this big mix of comparison and striving for something that has no real meaning and being praised for it. And that starts, as you picked up on, really early. I to, to tell the story that you're talking about, I think this is it. Anyway, I can't remember what I talk about in the episodes. So when people come to me and they say, "Oh, when you spoke about this," I kind of go, "Hang on a minute." But yeah, I did a lot of things while I was at school to try and make changes. And one of those things was I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would go to my friend's house. That because she lived literally 2 minutes away. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was getting up before school and going to my friend's house, and we would do a workout. And it was a proper aerobic workout, and I loved it because that was right up my street. And I would be pushing through and I would be powering along, and I'd be celebrating with myself for being better than my friend at this. And I was getting better and I was doing better. And I was also achieving this weight loss, which, quite frankly, as a school child, secondary school, admittedly, but at that age, should not be striving for because my body was still developing. But all of this stuff was making me celebrate what I was doing, because everything had this feel-good factor attached to it. And all of those things that I was celebrating were beliefs given to me by other people. I was believing that I needed to be thinner, to be better, to be more attractive, to be liked by the boys at school, because my friend was the skinny Britty friend, you know, she was the attractive one, and I was feeling very much second best against her. So every time I could lose a bit of weight, that was something to celebrate. I was getting more attractive. That's what people would say, you know, that's what people say, isn't it? If you're thinner, you're more attractive. But I also remember being at primary school, so being very young, and I must have been 8. Oh, yeah, about 8, because that ties in with the whole age and changing your body thing. And I remember a teacher saying to me then, she was lovely. She meant absolutely nothing offensive by it. She was just being friendly and celebrating some changes that I'd obviously been making. And she said, "Oh, you're turning into a right slim Jim, you are." So to her, that was an acknowledgement of, I am leading a fitter, healthier life. If I'm losing weight as a potentially slightly chubby child, which I was, she was celebrating the fact that obviously I was eating better and moving more. Do you know what? I don't know what I was doing at that time. All I remember is her telling me that my weight loss was good. So this is the whole compare and contrast thing is absolutely everywhere from a very young age. And as you said earlier, adults don't realise what they're saying. They don't realise when they're talking around a child what impact that is having. That teacher couldn't have known the lifelong imprint that would have had in my brain, in my memories. And people talking about the good and the bad food, the exercise, the ideal body types and things. When you talk about that around children, you don't realise the impact it's having and how much it's sinking in and being absorbed and listened to. And yeah, and that's when the comparisons all start.
Yeah, and I think like I've noticed that now, like when I'm around my nieces and stuff, I'm very careful about what I say because they do pick up even younger than that. Like I just had my 3-year-old niece for a week, and like she's like a repeat of everything, and she would go in the mirror, and so it is very interesting when it involves children. And I know that you have a daughter yourself. So I was wondering if you would speak to why it's important for you to do the work that you do and show her that, she's perfectly fine however she appears as well.
Yeah. Something that a lot of women that I speak to have this big guilt around the way they talk around their children, specifically their daughters. I mean, again, this doesn't just apply to girls, but it is prevalent in girls primarily. I grew up reinforcing all the messages that I had learned as I was growing up. So my mum was dieting, as I said. I learned those behaviours. I saw that it was a good thing to do, to be on a diet. I saw that weight loss was good. I saw it was something to strive for. And I reinforced that to my children as I was bringing them up too. So mine are now adults. They're 19 and 24. And it's only been the past 4 or 5 years that I've been talking about this stuff openly around them. So for the majority of their childhood years, what they saw is what I saw. And the messaging that they heard is what I heard. And my daughter, not at the age that I was when I first went to a slimming club, but I even took my daughter at one point to a slimming club with me because I was there and I was doing so well, and it really worked for me. And I thought, and she sounded so unhappy with herself, and I didn't actively encourage it, but I said, if you want to come with me, come with me. And she was an adult at this point, I will add, she was a young adult. But it was all there and the circle was continuing. And then when I started learning about this, when I changed my disordered eating, when I found more body confidence, I was like, this needs to stop and the cycle needs to break. And then we started having conversations at home. And I don't mean conversations as in, sit down, let's have a proper conversation about this. Just mean, chatting around the dinner table about stuff, or comments in passing about things that have happened in the day, things we've seen on TV, that sort of thing. And slowly but surely, the conversation in our house has now changed. And they know now that we don't do body comparisons. We don't strive for weight loss. People are valuable and worthy of everything in life and lovable and deserve everything that life has to offer them in whatever body they've got. They don't have to change to get it. And that conversation has naturally evolved in our house. But I speak to so many women who feel so guilty that they've continued that messaging with their kids. And I think the important thing to do is to know that it's not a done deal, right? All these beliefs, all these thoughts, all these messages, they sink in and they embed, yes, and we believe them for a very long time because we've heard them for a long time. But you can rewire them, you can reframe them, you can replace those messages with new beliefs. So it isn't ever too late to do that, but there is definitely guilt. People do hold guilt around that conversation. But once you can start that ball rolling and start changing the perspectives, then it's so good. And it's so satisfying to hear mine, for example, talking about how you don't need to diet, how you don't need to restrict. We quite often now have conversations where my oldest will be like, oh, Mum, my friend, she's doing this diet now. And she'll kind of roll her eyes about it and know that it's not the right way. And the woman at work is on the latest kind of fad. And, she'll go, Mum, you never guess what she's doing now. You never guess what diet she's doing now. So it's really nice that is now happening because it proves that you can break the cycle and you can change the beliefs around these things.
That's wonderful. I love that. I know you had talked about, I was getting a giggle on one of your podcast episodes when you were talking about how you and your daughter, you don't like going to the grocery store, or you didn't like going to the grocery store. And so you got really excited when you went with her because there was these lunch boxes that you guys found that you loved, and then you started putting it, you know, instead of like worrying about that stuff, you guys were excited about the lunch boxes and what was going in there, whether it was the candy or whatever. And I thought that was so cute. I was like, I love that. It made me laugh.
It is the best. It is the best. Yeah, we went. Oh, my dislike of going food shopping is real. I hate it with a passion. I hate it. I mean, I won't go on a massive rant about this, but let's just say I dislike it greatly. And yeah, one day she came with me And on the end of an aisle was this glorious display of all these really cute little lunch boxes. And then we ended up I spent about £25 that day on lunch boxes. But now, even now, and this was probably last year, I think. Even now, when we're making lunches in the mornings and stuff, one of us will be like, "Oh, look how cute this food looks in this box." And like you say, it doesn't matter what's in it. It could be some berries. It could be some chocolate. I mean, little cupcakes look the cutest in these little boxes. But the kind of message around that is that the way you see food, visually see food, has such an impact on whether you enjoy it or not. So lots of people, when they've been dieting forever and a day, will really struggle to enjoy eating fruit and vegetables, because when you're on a diet, that is what you have to live on a lot of the time. But actually, if you present your food nicely in a way that looks nice to you, I mean, they're just lunch boxes, right? But it means that when I get the things out at lunchtime or in the middle of the morning when I need a snack or whatever it is, instead of pulling out a sandwich bag, a little plastic bag, or instead of this old plastic tub that's all a bit discoloured now and the lid's cracked and all that, I'm pulling out this really cute little pot that now all of a sudden makes my food more pleasurable to eat. So yeah, there's a lot of pleasure to be had if you present your food nicely. It can help bridge the gap between what you see as diet food and actually starting to enjoy them again.
Yeah, I think there's almost I'm gonna say like a war on food sometimes, like when you're talking about the dieting, because a lot of times, like, I do love vegetables and fruits. I drink them and I eat them. They're one of my favorites, and I still love my pizza and stuff. But I used to like look at it and be like, oh well, this food isn't good and that food is good. So like ranking them, and like now I'm like, if I want to eat pizza, I'm gonna eat pizza, and if I'm gonna have my juice, I'm gonna have my juice. And I think too, something that's wrong is like people do get that perception of, okay, I'm just going to have fruits and vegetables. And then they don't have these things. But then when they fall off the wagon, I'll use that term, then they start binge eating and like doing like that kind of like just overindulging in everything. And when you are eating and you're not like you were saying, putting your things in there, you've got your cupcakes, you've maybe got some carrots or whatever, you start just eating a variety of food, and it's much better that way when you do that, when you have that variety going on. So I love that you shared that. And I don't know if you want to add anything on to that, but I did love that.
Ah, yeah, I tell little funny stories like that on my podcast because some people might listen to it and go, "Oh, just get to the point, Terry." But actually, for me, it's all these little bits and pieces in life that make such a difference to how I approach eating. And, if they make a difference to somebody else, then that's good. And if not, they'll just have a laugh at how ridiculous I am. But to expand on that a little bit, when it comes to the good and bad foods, can I talk about that a minute? Talk
Yeah,
about the good
absolutely.
and bad thing with food?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, when we go to diet clubs, people start to label foods as good and bad. And that's because these diet plans put food up on this pedestal. They put food like chocolate and ice cream and cake and pastries and pizza, like you mentioned, all these things that are deemed to be somehow unhealthy for us. They put them all up on this pedestal as these things that are only to be had when they are a treat. And then you get all the other foods, the things like the fruits and the vegetables, which are equally as enjoyable if you're allowed to have this wide range of foods. But those then become the things that you have to have so much of in order to do this diet and to achieve the goals, that you fall out of love with them. And I love hearing you say that you love the fruit and veg. I really love that because that's how it should be. All food should be enjoyable. So when you start putting food into categories of good or bad, then you start attaching feelings and emotions to them, because then foods become things that you're deemed to be good for having, and things on the opposite end of the scale are guilt-inducing, the negative feelings. So we can balance that out. In intuitive eating, everything is just this level playing field. Food is just food. And one of the key factors in learning that is to see that actually there's something great in everything you eat. So pizza's a really good example of that. Pizza, if you break that down into its parts, is you've got a lot of carbs in the base, and the carbs are energy. So the body's primary source of fuel is carbohydrates. That's why when we're tired, what we want is carbohydrates. When we're sluggish in the afternoon, what do we want? The sugary foods and drinks. And that's because the body's going, I need some carbs, I need some energy. So pizza's got a load of carbs in the base, and then you've got toppings. So you've got a base sauce, which is likely to be a tomato sauce or something like that. You've got cheese, which is protein, and it's calcium, and it's fat, and the body needs fat. There's loads of vitamins you can't absorb without fat. It's got all these great functions. It's there for all this healthy cell production and nerve production and all of this. And then, what do you like, Laurie? What do you like on a pizza?
I'm pretty plain. I do cheese, but I do enjoy, I will do occasionally like peppers and onions, but I love pineapple on pizza.
Oh,
So
me
good.
too. That's a
Pineapple's so good.
contentious one, isn't it?
I know a lot
Pizza
of
or
people
no
don't
pizza?
like it, but I used
Oh
to.
no, I love it.
I don't eat meat really anymore. I used to, but what I used to love was pineapple and pepperoni, because you would get that sweet and the salty balance. And for anyone who hasn't had it, pineapple and pepperoni is delicious on a pizza. It's so good.
Yep.
What about you?
It's so better than just pineapple and ham.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like a barbecue, so I like a barbecue sauce rather than a tomatoey one. And I like some chicken, and I like some peppers and red onion and sweet corn. And yes, I will throw pineapple on there if I've got it.
That sounds good too.
But that means that what we've got is we've got our carbs, we've got our fats in the cheese. Even if you have no toppings at all, you've still got protein in the cheese and your fats. So you've got everything you need. And then when you throw things on top, so we've got between us loads of different veg there. That's loads of vitamins, loads of minerals. How can you say pizza is bad when it gives you this massive range of all of the food groups and vitamins and minerals? So when you can break food down and see that everything contributes something to your body, you can take away that good and bad when it comes to food.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was really great. And I think it was 2020 that you said that you started to go on this journey of like nutritional therapy, and then go into the online coaching world, and working with this. So can you share with what made you want to do this? What shifted in you to be like, okay, this is what I want to do? Because I know that you love your work that you're doing, and when we got to talk, I just want to share, like, I felt like so much joy from you, because you could tell how much you love what you were doing, and that it didn't come across as work for you, even though it is work, that you're so passionate about it that it is more like fun incorporated into your work. So can you share your story into what led you into this?
Yeah, of course. If you rewind many years, I've already said I grew up in dieting. Then that continues into my adulthood, and I kept dieting. And you don't see it coming if you've been in this situation, but I found myself in an eating disorder. So I was diagnosed with binge eating disorder. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically uncontrolled drives to eat and eat and eat, and nothing satisfies it. And it's a very scary place to be in the middle of a binge. And the word binge kind of gets bandied around a little bit. So people will have an evening session where they eat loads of crisps and chocolate, and they're just like, oh, I just couldn't stop eating. I binged all night last night. But an actual binge in respect of binge eating disorder is way more. It's a lot to do with the quantity of food, just the sheer volume of food, and it doesn't stop, and it's there's no rhyme or reason to it. You don't know what you're looking for, and it is a miserable place to be. And by this time, I'd done every diet under the sun, and I was in this place where I was so unhappy. I had this disordered eating, which nobody knew about. It was very much a secret thing. I had some control in respect of I would be able to do it when people weren't in the house, when my husband was at work, when the kids were in bed, that sort of thing. And it was miserable. It was really, really miserable. And the turning point for me was one night when I was stood in the bathroom, looking in the mirror with this great dislike for the way I looked. I won't go into detail, but I wasn't particularly kind to myself that evening, and it was rock bottom. It was just such a low point. I was like, I have to do something about this. And fast forward a little bit, I came across intuitive eating, and I'd heard about it. I had heard about it before, but I didn't understand it. I couldn't see how you could just eat anything absolutely anything, and it be fine. And I couldn't understand how people could be happy in their bodies, even in bigger bodies. I just couldn't understand it. But this time, it was like right time, right place for me. And I came back across intuitive eating, and I read the book, and it was the original book. I think I'd got my hands on a free copy somehow. And I read the book, and it just hit home. I was like, this is it. I get it now. I think I get it. And I started learning about the principles. I started trying to understand it. I joined some Facebook groups, that sort of thing. And slowly but surely, my body responded. It started to trust me again. And the binges just disappeared. They just went. And that's not to say they never, ever happened ever again, but they are seriously few and far between. And now I am the biggest I've ever been, the heaviest I've ever been. I assume now, because I don't have scales anymore. Those went a long time ago. But I'm definitely the biggest I've ever been. But I am the happiest I've ever been. I am the most at peace with food I've ever been. I don't worry about food. I don't have fear and anxiety around having food, different types of food in the house. I don't care what clothes size I wear. I am the most secure I've ever been in my relationship. And this was just such a revelation that I was like, right, I need to tell people about this because this is just brilliant. So then it started being this kind of labor of love, really. And it was just me talking about it on social media and on Instagram. And that's where I kind of hung out. And people got interested. And I thought, sure, I'm going to train. I'm going to do this. Because there is actual certification that you go through to become an intuitive eating counsellor. So I did the training, which was long training and a big exam at the end of it. And then I did body image training and got myself certified in that. I was like, this is the most satisfying work. When I started working with people, or even before I started working with people, I was getting messages on Instagram saying, it just makes sense. You talk about it in a way that makes sense. I understand what you're saying, and I want the freedom that you're experiencing. And when I have women who come to, say, because I've got a membership and I do personal coaching, I get women who come to a group session or they come to me in a private session and they say, oh, well, it's not a big deal, but this happened. And they think that because they've had a piece of cake without feeling guilty, it's just this teeny tiny little thing that, it doesn't really matter, but I'll mention it anyway. And I'm sat here going, that's massive. That is so good. And I just celebrate everybody. It's the best job in the world. It really is.
Yeah, I love that's something that I do love about where you just were saying how you celebrate everyone and how you get so excited is that you also one of the great things about your social media and your podcast is that you bring a lot of humor in there too. So while most of the episodes are you, there's a lot of fun in there, and it's not just it's not just while it's a serious topic that you're talking about, you do make light of the situations. And I think that that also makes it more relatable for people because I think sometimes, especially with like body image and eating, like we get to this point where we're like, this is so serious and I can't joke about it. And, like that's one of the things that I love is that you do bring that humor to it. Has that been something that even in your own journey was beneficial for you to have that humor?
Mm. I did my journey on my own. I'm not going to lie. I didn't have a circle of people around me also doing this. I was in some Facebook groups, but I didn't really have people around me who knew intuitive eating, who did intuitive eating. Everybody I knew was still at the diet club. And I wish I'd had somebody to laugh at it with as we were going through it. It's, like you say, it's a serious topic. It is a serious topic because this stuff is life-changing for people. It means you either live your life in misery, and it is misery, when the weight of the world is on your shoulders because you feel like you're not good enough, or you don't have this control around food that you would like, or you feel desperately unhappy in your body. God, to have somebody just make a joke and make you laugh about it just for a minute is relief. And that's what we all need sometimes, is just a bit of a pickup and a bit of relief and a bit of lightheartedness, because then actually you can see that other people feel the same. Other people make, the same, not mistakes along the journey, because I don't think there's ever a mistake when you're trying to be an intuitive eater. You learn from something and then you keep going. But if you can have somebody go, yeah, I know, I did that. That was ridiculous, wasn't it? And, and keep going on, it just makes you realize that you're human and not this person out there on your own in a very, very serious place. And that's how it has to be all the time.
And do you think that with because I know you had mentioned it, like how like at your point when you said you were rock bottom, you had said some really unkind things. How important has it been in your journey to have that kind of positive self-talk with yourself as well, though?
Massively. And I don't sit here with this kind of I am fixed now approach, because I don't think that anybody will ever be 100% happy with themselves. There are always going to be days where people get up and they look in the mirror and they do not like what they see. You can be the most stereotypically socially acceptable, beautiful, visually, and still get up some days and really dislike what you're looking at in the mirror. And so to be able to, even in those days, go, all right, I don't particularly like the way I look today, or I don't like the way I feel, like the way your body feels can have an impact on that. So to have days where you're like, I don't feel good, I don't feel like I look great, and then just have some compassion for that and some self-kindness for that, that's really, really important, because the picture of that before is look in the mirror, beat yourself up, criticize yourself, pick and pull at every bit that you dislike and you're unhappy with, squeeze yourself into clothes that are tight and hurt and make you focus on your body all day long. Now that picture is look in the mirror, accept that it doesn't feel good or doesn't look good, put on some comfortable clothes that feel kind to the body, say some kind words like, okay, maybe you don't like the way you look today, but you're a good person, you're going to have a good day, and the way you look doesn't make a difference to that. It makes a massive difference the way you speak to yourself. And also the subconscious takes it in and believes it. So a lot of us would say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to a friend or a loved one. We say things in the most fleeting of moments that we often don't even know we do it anymore. Even just silly things like, oh, how could you be so stupid? Words like that go straight into your subconscious and then you believe them. So the more that we tell ourselves that our bodies aren't good enough, the more we tell ourselves that we don't conform to society's standards, the more we believe it. So we've got to start with ourselves, because we can't change the way the world values us if we don't value ourselves first, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the one of the biggest problems in the world with everything is that people are trying to find value in themselves from outside sources anyway.
Yeah.
So, you were just saying, like the way that you talk to yourself. I know that this is cliche and people say it, but when people have quoted saying, like, if you had a friend who talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, would you be friends with that person? And that was something that was really, even for myself, changing when I was going through my own journeys, because I was like, okay, I'm journaling down stuff, and maybe this isn't, the best way to talk to myself. So, yeah, and the people that you surround yourself with, I know that you said that your husband's great, your family's great, and you have some great friends. So, how important has that also been in your journey? Because you do have all those people who accept and love you for who you are.
I didn't specifically cultivate my people around me. It was something that just happened as I changed the things that I did in life, socially, that sort of thing. I realized one day that this group of people that I surround myself with, they are the people that are good to have in life, because my husband has been with me through all different shapes and sizes of my body and still loves me in the same way. My kids couldn't give two hoots what I look like, I'm sure. Maybe they did once upon a time when I was embarrassing, stood at school gates, but not anymore. They don't care. I'm still their mum, and that's that. My friends are now a group of people that don't judge me. They don't care what I look like. They don't care what I weigh or what I'm dressed in. Some days I rock up and I've got my hair scraped up, I've got no makeup on, and I've got some clothes that I nearly said that I've had on for a week. That's not true. I washed my clothes. But something that I've dragged out the wardrobe and not really put any thought into. And other days I'll do my hair, I'll do my makeup, I'll put on clothes that I feel great in. They don't care what I turn up looking like. And that is how your circles should be. Because I have had those circles where I compared myself to them. I wanted to compete with them in some way, shape or form. It goes back to the comparison that we were talking about earlier. I don't know if they were judging me. I don't know if they were considering what I look like, or what diet I was doing, or what I weighed, or what I was eating. I don't know, because they never said anything of that nature to me. But I thought that they might be. And if you think that about the people around you, you either have to have a conversation, and you have to kind of air that and clear the air if these are people that you want in your life for a long time, or if you think that they're judgy people and they don't contribute anything of value to your life, then sometimes we have to make the decision of whether these people are people you should spend a lot of time around, It's difficult, but I definitely came to the realization rather than cultivating my friends specifically.
And do you find now that you're more comfortable? I know you said you're not fixed. It'll be an ongoing journey for you. But doing all your other activities, I know that you like to dance, and I think it's I you want to be on Strictly Come Dancing sometime, I had saw.
Oh,
Um,
I nearly knocked my mic over in excitement then. Are you getting me on Strictly, Laurie? Please.
I laughed so because I love that. I was like, that's amazing. Like the dancing. Like, do you feel like now that you're more comfortable with yourself, do you feel that you enjoy those things? I know that you love pool and the dancing. I did see that you did, and I have to ask because you said that you were really good at pole dancing. And so I have I have to ask because when I think of pole dancing in the US, I think it might be a little bit different, or is it the same thing that I'm thinking of there?
No, right. So no, you are thinking of pole dancing as the right thing. You
Okay,
are,
okay.
that's what you are thinking about. Yeah, for me, I wasn't a club dancer. I didn't work in a club. I didn't do that kind of pole dancing. What I did was I went to a local studio. I was there 5, 6, 7 times a week. I absolutely loved it. It was the most empowering, positive space to be in. And I would do it for myself, firstly, because it does make you feel so good. And it was a space to just go and dance, and everybody was there for the same thing. So nobody was looking across the room, judging. You just went with the flow and danced. And then there were days where I was about the tricks and the crazy stuff you can do on the pole. And so I competed, I won a competition, and yeah, I loved it. It was so good. I can't even remember what your question was, but pole dancing, if you honestly, if you've got this opinion of pole dancing that it is a stereotypically can I swear? Am I allowed to say
You
bitchy?
can. You can.
Yeah. If you think of it as this kind of stereotypically bitchy, clicky place to be, I'm guessing it can be. But if you find the right studio and you find the right instructor, it is the most empowering thing to do. And the pole dancing community on social media is insanely supportive. I think everybody should try it at some point in their life.
That's amazing. Now, I know you said you wanted to go on the Strictly Come Dancing. You wanted to be nominated to go on there. So, is there a specific type of dance that you find that you really enjoy, or outside of pole dancing, or is that what you would do if you were ever able to audition or do that?
Yeah, I so Strictly Come Dancing is Latin and ballroom, and every time I watch it, I'm like, I'd be great at the tango, or you know, or something like that. I'm sure it would be very different if I got to have a go at it. But yeah, the dances that are a bit fiery and a little bit full of attitude, and so things like the paso doble and things like that, I would love to have a go at. But I don't do classes, and I haven't done classes, so who knows? I might fall over my feet, but I would love that. But actually, turning this back to the confidence thing, because I think that's the question before I got all excited about it. I think that this journey has had a massive impact on how confident I would feel doing those things. So pole dancing was a massive confidence boost. If there was always an edge for me of unsurety about myself, but I was able to see the great stuff that my body could do, the strength that you need to do it, or the strength that you build in doing it, the ability to flow and move and dance and feel it, just feel the freedom. That was awesome. But I think now I would have more confidence, because now I don't really care what people think of the way that my body looks. I would just be loving the opportunity to do it and the joy in doing it. So many times we sit on the sidelines. I cannot tell you the amount of times that we have been places as a family and I've made up a bad neck so I can't go on the rides, or I'll just sit here and hold the bags. I'll look after the bags. You go on the rides and I will sit here and wait for you. The amount of stuff that I've not joined in with in my life that I desperately wish I could go back and do, I can't even count. So definitely now doing this work has meant that I just want to do things and I just want to experience things. And that's the way it should be.
And a good point that you made was, that you were like, oh, I don't care what people think. And I think that is really powerful because too much times in this world we're too worried about what other people are thinking about us. And I know I'm guilty of that too. There's times where I'm like, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to look horrible doing that or something. Actually dancing used to be one of those things that I wouldn't do because I'm like, oh, I'll like
Oh.
jiggle this way or that, you know what I mean? And now I'm like, oh, I don't care either. So, um, for people who are struggling with that confidence with eating, and what would be your advice to them?
I think you have to pick and choose what you care about. So don't get me wrong, there are times where I think I do care what people think about me, but it's for the right reasons now. So for instance, if I am I've people managed, in employment. I would fight tooth and nail for my team as a manager, and I will defend people, and I will help people and support people in their roles. If somebody was to think or say to somebody that I didn't have their best interest at heart, or that I wasn't doing everything I could do in my role, that sort of thing, that I would care about, because I care about people's perception of me as a person. I don't care about people's perception of me visually. And that's the difference. So I think I was having this conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, actually. I think life in general teaches you a lot of that. I think as you go through the kind of decades, you start to give less care to what people think about you anyway. But with the whole body confidence thing, and if you're in this place where you're worried about the way you look, then that can be a really difficult one to shake off. So I would suggest a good starting point would be to consider where you're giving too much care to what other people think of you. So examples of that would be, if you say you want to lose weight to go on holiday, for example, why do you want to lose weight to go on holiday? The answer to that is quite often things like, so I can wear a bikini, or so I can wear a swimsuit at the pool or at the beach. And then dig into that a little bit more. So why do you now not feel like you can wear a bikini or a swimsuit? Well, I will look XYZ. Okay, and why is that a problem? Well, because what will people think? It always boils down to what will people think. And when you can start to break down these situations in your head and keep it going and say, and why is that? And why is that? Or why does that matter? You soon start to break down the fact that everything on the whole comes down to what other people think of you. And when you can recognize that, you can start to dismiss it. I don't want to sound too flippant about this, because it's easier said than done. But the crux of it is, if you can understand why you're thinking about things the way you're thinking about them, and you're realizing that you're concerned about what other people think of you, and then deciding whether that's a reasonable or rational thing to think, then you can start to dismiss these thoughts, because, well, actually, it doesn't matter if the people around the pool see me like that, because I don't know them and I will never see them again as long as I live. And then all of a sudden, that big thought of I couldn't possibly put a swimming costume on is now minimized, because you realize it doesn't matter to the degree you thought it did. So if you can put yourself in the thought for a minute and break it down and break it down and break it down to that real last moment of why ultimately am I worried about this, you can usually start to put it into an easier context that you can then say, okay, it's not that bad. Does
And
that make sense?
It does. And I was just going to ask on that too. Do you ever, like, if you feel that you're going through that in your head and you know, okay, I'm starting to like judge myself or something, do you ever use tools like journaling or meditation or anything like that that helps you kind of gather your thoughts and make it easier to see where your struggles really truly are?
Yeah, journaling is awesome. Do you know that I've got a journaling membership? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, I've got a journaling membership. Um, for that exact reason. Journaling is really powerful. It is the best way to just get all these thoughts out, because we sit and we think these thoughts and we think we know that where they come from, but we're too quick to move on. So maybe you have a bad day at work, and I'm trying to not be too body specific about this because, yeah, I don't want to get too nitty gritty with the examples. But say you have a bad day at work and you get home and you say, oh, I'm sure that my boss thought badly of me today. I'm sure that they didn't like what I was wearing. And in the moment, if you're just thinking about it, you can go, yeah, she must have hated what I was wearing because blah, blah. And then you move on. If you were to journal on that, what it does is it allows you to get deeper into it. Well, because she said this and she looked at me like that, and and then you start breaking it down, and the brain naturally wants you to keep going because you've put yourself in this place of focus solely on those thoughts and analysing them. So when you start journaling, it just allows this kind of free flow of thoughts. And I say free flow, don't get me wrong. I thought that journaling was the hardest thing in the world until I was given a couple of prompts or, a thought to work with. And then all of a sudden, once you can start the ball rolling, the thoughts will flow. And there is a lot to be said for getting things down on paper. The brain processes things and analyzes things and filters things when you're writing. I don't know the exact science behind that, so I can't talk to that, but there is an actual proven scientific reason why when you write, it helps your brain process things more. So journaling is just brilliant because you can dive deep and nobody else is going to see it. It's not like you're disclosing your deepest, darkest secrets to somebody who then next time you see them is going to go, I know what you think. It's just for you. It's personal. You can just write it all down or voice noting it. That's another way to journal. You can voice note it. You can do these things. You can keep them. You can write it. You can dispose of it. But getting it out and processing it is so important. And you mentioned meditation as well. I can't speak on meditation because it's not something I've ever found it very easy to do. I think I would need some guidance to help me do it and use it properly. But I would say that the space that you give yourself to be able to meditate is going to be the same as the space you give yourself to journal. If you can give yourself 15 minutes in a day in quiet on your own to just be with your thoughts and try and just get some stuff out of your busy brain, it's time well spent.
And is that something that obviously you said, like that's a personal journey. So in your groups that you work with, is that something that you guys have discussions over, like maybe like some of the stuff that people will journal? Is that something that you guys kind of work on together in those group sessions?
Yeah, my group sessions are really, really good. I know I'm biased. But I love the group because there's so much conversation that comes out of it. So whereas you've got journaling and you've got meditation and you've got the work that you do on your own, there's also so much benefit to having a group of people that are also on the same path as you. And so the way my membership is set up is we have one workshop session a month, and we have one open question and answer session a month. And with the workshop, I'll bring a topic. We'll have a coaching session around a specific topic. So, for example, this month we did the feelings wheel. So I had a guest speaker actually this month. But I do a different topic depending on what's going on. So we've done workshops on making peace with sweet food and treats, that sort of thing. We've done workshops on body respect and being actually kinder to your body, that sort of thing. And I will come with prompts, and that will start the ball rolling. And the conversation that comes out and the thoughts that come out is because everybody is processing this information together, and the thoughts coming out, and they're generating more thoughts, and they're prompting more thoughts. And the same with the question and answer sessions. Somebody will come and say, I'm struggling with this month, or, I've had a real tough time this week. I feel like this. And then the thoughts from other people will start flowing, and somebody will say, well, did you think of this? Or I feel that, I understand how you feel, and this is what helped me. And it is, I guess it is a form of, it's a form of journaling, isn't it? I suppose the thoughts flow, it starts the brain running. We definitely get into some pretty good conversation once it starts, once everybody's thoughts start running.
That's amazing. So if people want to find you, where can they find information on your meetings and your journaling and all the things that you're doing?
On everything. My key, everything. I just do everything. My key things that I have to offer is I've got my journaling membership, which is it's a daily email. It just drops into your inbox every day with a journal prompt, something to journal on that day. Because for me, the hardest thing was that blank piece of paper. I don't know where to start. So it's the line that says, have a think about this. And I've got my group membership, and I've got my personal coaching. And the easiest place to find them is if you go to terripugh.com. Everything is linked through there. That's my website. That's the easiest place. You've got the information on the services on there. The blog on there I regularly update. All my podcast episodes feed through the website. So just go to the website. It's all on there. And the links to my social media are all on there as well.
And I'll include all those links in the show notes here for everyone
Thank
too.
you.
And I know right now on your podcast, I saw that you are doing, I haven't caught up to that part yet, but you are doing like 10 days of 10 episodes of it's the steps for intuitive eating, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love listener feedback. I love hearing from podcast listeners. And I had somebody who messaged me and she said, I really, really love your podcast. I'm really enjoying it. But I feel like I need to know the basics to be able to appreciate everything you're saying. And I thought, how have I not even done that? How have I not explained the basics of intuitive eating on my podcast? It's like the curse of knowledge, isn't it? When you know something, you forget what people don't know. So yes, I'm running a series. It's the Back to Basics series. It is 10 days because there are 10 principles. They're really short, 10, 15-minute episodes. And they explain the 10 principles of intuitive eating that kind of make intuitive eating work as a whole. So there's 10 different aspects. There's how to reject diet mentality. There's learning how to feel your hunger and your fullness and be satisfied by food and have a better relationship with movement. There's a bit on nutrition in there. So all these 10 principles work together, and this series that's running at the moment is explaining those 10 principles.
Oh, wonderful. I might have to skip to those and then go back where I am on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely podcast. Everyone should check it out.
Thank
You
you.
do such a great job with it. And is there anything that you would like to leave off with or share or?
Um, God, we've covered such a lot, haven't we? I the thing that I always want people to know, and I mean this hand on heart, is that you are worthy and valued, and you have a place in the world. The world is a better place for having you in it. And it does not matter what shape or size you are. It does not matter what you look like. What matters is you and your contribution to the world and how you affect other people's lives, because we all affect somebody else's life somewhere along the line. We all have a positive impact on somebody. And this is the message that I wish everybody felt and believed for themselves, is that they have a place in the world, and they have a contribution, and they are very lovable and very worthy, just as they are.
You're such a delightful person. I'm
Oh,
so glad to have you on. Thank you for doing this so much.
oh, Laurie, it's been fun. Thank you. I'm so pleased that I got to chat with you. I
Oh,
really
yeah,
am.
me too. And I will definitely have to have you come back on at some point too. And as you're going through your journey and have another conversation. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.